And welcome back to this segment of the Power Breakfast Show. Now we look at what's making headlines in the dailies. This morning, the Standard has a story that has captured the mood of the whole country. We seem to be socializing violence. A revolt on head teachers transfers spreads across the country. Now, leaders arrested for ejecting incoming administrators amid protests in several countries over poor grades. That and much more on page 1 and page 5 of the Daily Nation. Some of the highlights include in Bungoma, where 4 MCAs were tried to storm Friends School Kamusinga on Wednesday to evict the newly posted principal, Alex Maina. And on January 3rd, some parents attacked Uradi Primary School head teacher Yona Oyugi over what they termed as poor performance. The teacher actually sustained injuries. Now in West Pokot, a similar thing happened at Kapenguria Boys High School, where the school was closed indefinitely on Thursday, yesterday, after students protested opposed the transfer of their principal, James Omayo. A similar thing happened in Makueni, where 5 MCAs were arrested as they stormed St. Joseph's Girls Kibwezi. And in Siaya, parents stormed a school, Agwara Mixed, demanding the immediate transfer of the head teacher over what they termed as poor performance. Now, the Inspector General of Police, Joseph Boynet, says we will not allow people to interfere with learning in schools in the name of ejecting principals they don't like. That is not their work. And the National Assembly Education Committee chairperson, Julius Mary, is quoted as saying, it is wrong to threaten and evict a senior teacher the way the MCS did on Wednesday. We have civilized ways of handling issues and solving problems. Also on the front page, quite an interesting story that you need to get time and look through. A girl who turned up for Form 1 with nothing. All she needed was sheer determination and thirst for knowledge. The girl, Grace Akinyi, was admitted at Butere Girls High School after she scored about 392 marks in last year's KCPE in a school, in a village called Nasira Village, somewhere in Busia County. She walked for a number of kilometers, and with the 200 shillings she had been given by one of her previous senior teachers in the previous primary school, she managed to connect with Matatu here and there and cover the rest of the distance walking. She apparently reached Butere Girls with swollen feet. The principal, Butere Girls, actually Principal Jennifer Omondi, admitted her without a single cent, hoping that good Samaritans will come out there and come to her aid. The girl says, I will do everything in order to emulate my role model, Deputy Chief Principal Philomena Mwilu. You can never talk about determination beyond this. Also on the Standard, story about new head teachers facing growing opposition from local leaders. The police had to come in to help some of the teachers get into their schools. Page 5 of the Daily Nation, concerns of the Standard rather, concerns are now raised over gaps left in key commissions. That is the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. Of course, then there is the former National Gender and Equality Commission Chairperson, Winfred Lichuma, and former Salaries and Remuneration Commission Chairperson's office, Madam Sarah Serem. These are offices that are now vacant, and concerns are now being raised about how to have them filled as soon as possible. Also on the Standard, page 7, Uhuru to speak at the ANC anniversary. President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is currently on a 3-day official visit in South Africa, will be giving a keynote address during this 106th anniversary of the African National Congress Party in Durban, South Africa. Other stories making headlines in the Standard this morning include reports about election petition cases going on. Ngilu denies that she bribed voters. Ranguma challenges the dismissal of his poll case, and there is going to be partial scrutiny of votes in Imenti Central constituency and 4 other polling stations. This is a ruling following the application of a recount by Mugambi Manyara, who is petitioning senior Senator Mithika Linturi's win. Also in the Standard, commentaries from the editorial desk. And one of the commentaries is from Dr. Hezron Mugambi, who says, why day schooling will deal with wastage in our education system. The editorial has a story about punish those sabotaging free secondary education in our schools. On the Daily Nation, front page, high stakes in Uhuru talks with Zuma. President Uhuru Kenyatta, currently in South Africa, had a meeting yesterday with his host, President Jacob Zuma, and is expected to address the 106th Congress of the African National Congress Party in Durban, South Africa. And the story goes on page 4, where it says it's a tricky balancing act as Uhuru meets with Zuma and Ramaphosa. Now they say there is need for him to meet Cyril Ramaphosa, who is likely to be the next president of South Africa, given that he already is a new leader of African National Congress, the biggest party in South Africa. Also on the front page, 6 arrested as leaders reject school heads. This story goes on page 2 of the Daily Nation, and a story that has captured the mood of the country the last few days. Now a lawyer sues Kenya Power over inflated power bills. This story and more on page 1 and page 9 of the Daily Nation. Story about 6 being arrested after they raided different schools trying to eject or refuse newly posted school principals from taking over is captured in depth on page 2 of the Daily Nation. Page 3, quite an interesting story. Action by NEMA as they raid and close 4 top Nairobi city nightclubs over what residents in Kilimani area term as noise. Now other people are saying they should extend the same to matatus and even churches that are in the residential areas that seem to be abusing the noise levels that are acceptable. Page 5 of the Daily Nation, quite a story. County bosses to get roles in school reform reviews. Education CS Dr. Fred Matiang'i will be meeting county commissioners today for talks on how to implement education reforms in schools in the country. On page 6, Gilu defends her poll win in court. Duale says, I won the seat fairly. Ranguma files an appeal against a court ruling that threw out his appeal over the election of Kisumu Governor Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o. Page 8, now United States has a scrapped travel warning to Kenya as Kenya Airways now starts the process of flying directly from Nairobi to New York City. This and more on page 8 of the Daily Nation. Back page, 6,000 vehicles stuck in Mombasa over plates. Now dealers blame NTSA for failing to issue registration numbers, thus raising their costs. More than 6,000 imported second-hand vehicles are lying at at different container freight stations in Mombasa, waiting for the troubled NTSA to issue the number plate. The 6,493 units, to be precise, are said to be attracting storage charges of 19.4 million shillings a day as the shortage of plates hits the dealers. Now this and more on the back page of the Daily Nation. As I told you earlier, I am now joined by Mr. Amos Kaburu from Twaweza. We are expecting Mheshimiwa Mboko Milemba, the Member of Parliament for Muhaya and National Chairman of KUPPET, to join us in the panel too as we look at what's making headlines. But I start with you, Amos. Yeah. We seem to be socializing or accepting violence as a way of solving problems, especially education problems. First it was ejecting teachers for poor performance. Now it's rejecting teachers who've been posted to various schools. What's happening?
Thank you so much. I think you've captured it exactly as we were having this discussion, that we seem to be accepting that peaceful resolution of conflicts is impossible, and therefore we've resorted to violence as the only mechanism through which we could resolve the challenges that are facing us. And I'm just trying to imagine, you are this innocent person who was in your school, you didn't apply to go to that particular school to head it, then your employer, who is at the discretion to deploy you, deploys you to a different station. It's a hurried process because these transfers just came out like a month ago, and then where you're going to, you are in the best interest that when you are trained, you are a professional, you are willing and ready to serve any part of the country.
You actually undertook.
And it's not even so. The work of the principal is a lot of work, that 60% of your effort will never be compensated because principals, for instance, never even go on leave, even when schools are closed. principals are basically in school. You have more work. You are the institutional head. You are the manager. You are the financial head. You are the human resource head. You are the technical lead. You are the head.
You are actually a teacher.
You are basically a teacher. And so when these kind of things happen, you can imagine you have got a family, you have got young children, and they are watching what is happening. I think it's rather unfortunate. And when we equally see the kind of silence from certain quarters that are supposed to protect the interests of the teachers, then it becomes quite a little bit worrying.
And which are these quarters? Are you talking about the unions?
For instance, the unions. We've seen the unions have been very, very silent on this aspect of seeing that there are members who are being evicted and ejected from schools. And finally, to the part of the parents, we understand that schools have got, schools are a shared responsibility. Schools are basically institutions that have got lots of interest. I think that we ought to be a little bit patient when we look at the aspect of performance. What is this that constitutes good performance? Because you need to understand that in a different school where things are working, it's because all the stakeholders, they have basically put
there must be something they are doing.
Yes, right. So you cannot just walk into a school and condemn a head teacher alone to be the sole reason for the poor performance, because research has shown that good performance in a school is a factor of what the school does, which is amalgamation of the parental involvement, the effort of the students, and largely also what the school does. So, I mean, what the head does.
Is there any empirical measure for parental involvement?
There is.
Most parents normally say, I have paid fees, I need results.
Yes. There is actually a lot of empirical evidence in terms of what parents are supposed to do. And that is, number one, having a clear pathway in terms of shared values, shared expectations between the school and the household. Number two is in terms of follow-up. What is it that you are supposed to do? Because there are certain things which the school can do, there are others which the school cannot do. If, for instance, you have a child in primary school, then you have a responsibility to know what is the progress that your child is making. And anytime maybe you are made reference to, you are invited to go to a school, it's actually your responsibility to go there. So I think parents play a critical role in realizing desirable learning outcomes, and therefore they cannot relegate and put the entire responsibility to the part of the teachers alone.
What's your take about the concern by parents and politicians that the people being transferred to our schools are coming from non-performing schools? You are taking our best and giving us, you saw the story about somebody saying, the list we had was only 2 C planes. This teacher you're bringing us, the last results he had was a mean grade of 4.
Okay. It is true, as I said, education is a very, very emotive issue. It attracts the interest of almost all the stakeholders, if not all the stakeholders. Parents have a stake, media, the general public has a stake in what is happening. However, it's important to explain that results are contextual. You cannot just pinpoint and say that one factor is what is attributable to good results. And therefore it's important that some of these we give them an opportunity. Because
but earlier on you alluded, earlier on you alluded to the fact that the head teacher is everything.
I didn't say that in terms of performance. I mean, if you look at the whole institution of a head teacher, it's a very, very broad responsibility that requires a lot of stakeholder management. That's basically the main function of the head teacher, is to manage the interest and bring together all the stakeholders for them to achieve what is the corporate goal of what kind of a school that they want to achieve. So it's important to mention sometimes your mean over 4 could in that circumstance be one of the best. So if you are given what is important is to give them an opportunity, settle down, agree on what is it that we want, then we socialize, we culturalize what exactly we want. But otherwise, this kind of pedestrian approach which we are taking, evicting innocent people just on the basis, in fact, are they professionals? These are the teachers are the professionals. They are the ones who know that.
And as I said earlier, we have in the panel Honorable Mboko Milemba, Member of Parliament for Muhaya, but most importantly, the National Chairman of KUPPET. Mushma, before you came in, Amos here was raining on you people as the unions. You are not saying anything. Teachers are being attacked left, right, and center. Is it because they are serving your interests? Because you people are on record as having opposed the transfers, the unions, not really KUPPET.
Not really. I don't think anybody should rain on us because, thank you first. First, what we do is to advise, because we deal with the teachers directly from the shop ground. And you remember originally we were cautious about this policy. We said it is too drastic, it is too immediate, it is too fast. It was coming at a time when many other policies were being implemented. Remember, we were doing the textbook issue, we were doing the curriculum issue.
And the exam? We
were doing the exam scenario, and then this one was coming in. So sometimes when unions we talk, and we usually advise that, hey, because of what I've just overheard what my friend saying, education is a delicate thing. So you need to bring these things in a manner that will actually be accommodated by the society, by the student, and by the school, as it were. So we are not quiet. It is us who talked first. And maybe we were just cautioning that, hey, let's move at a good pace. Let's move slowly. Yes, it is true that it is the prerogative of the Teacher Service Commission and therefore the employer to deploy teachers anywhere in the country. And that law should come out quite clearly to the public, because that's the kind of letter you receive. I'm a teacher myself, unlike my friend here. When I was deployed, it was like you can teach anywhere. But when you are doing this, you have to take into account the circumstances of the time. You have to take into account what the needs of the society is and how to do it in such a way that it will not interfere with the general good of the public at that particular time.
So does it mean because you people advise and your advice doesn't seem to have been taken, then you can be quiet when teachers are beaten left, right, and center?
I'm happy you have called me here. I come here basically to say that this thing must come to an end, because it is extremely very wrong to go and evict teachers from schools. And people who are evicting teachers from schools are people who are not professional. Teaching has got a structure, and that structure is very well defined, both in law, Constitution, and the Education Act and the TSE Act. So the people who are doing it very wrongly. How I wish to advise, not just to advise, but to say that they should stop what they are doing and allow us to deal with this matter from the context of the stakeholders who are real inbuilt in the system.
How come we've not had you people call for a strike because teachers are being
The first people whom I saw take over this were the MCS, and the MCS were doing it basically because of maybe the communities they come from. And remember, education is not a devolved function. Education is a national function. We can check Schedule 4, and therefore their role really is devolved function. So there is a point they are delivering, but that point is being delivered wrongly. How I wish they could petition, yes, and they're allowed to petition anytime, to picket anytime they wish, but they can petition by going to the county officers of education. They can petition by coming to members of parliament, who will later on take it to education committee and petition upwards. But the way they are doing it is so wrongly. So this must come to an end. It must really come to a stop. As we talk about the policy having been implemented in a hurry without much consultation, not many people like the word consultation of late. In fact, I fear using it, because when you say you should be consulted, people imagine you should be asked and never. No. I think maybe we should have developed what I want to call ownership, a little bit of ownership, advocacy within the societies.
But Omboko Milemba, I am still waiting for you to tell me why we have not heard your voices, even after teachers were physically assaulted in not one, not two, but several institutions for poor performance and even for transfers.
We have been on record. I think you are getting it wrong. We were on this before Christmas.
No, I'm talking about now that we have. That you said you did.
Yes.
I'm talking about now that teachers have been assaulted for poor results in some primary schools, and teachers are blocked from entering schools. Unions have not been as loud.
We have been on this, including yesterday. Yesterday we were addressing a press conference in the office of the Secretary General over the same. And our take is that let education be run by educationists. So we are on record, and we are still on record, saying that don't harass the teachers in the schools.
As a politician, do you think transferring a teacher from a non-performing school will affect the school they are taken to? Because that is the assertion by most parents and politicians.
That comes to then the advice we gave before it happened. We wanted it to be done in such a way that it should not have really interfered with the school system. You see, for the first time, the parents are coming on the platform rather pedestrians, if I may borrow from my friend here, I found him using the word pedestrians, are actually using the platform of professionals to criticize the professionals. It should be the professionals saying, hey you, we are not taking you to this school because your performance is not good. But now we find, I saw it also on telly, on your screens, that is somebody else whom I even don't know if he was a professional in the teaching, saying that, hey, we are not accepting this teacher because his performance is this.
Yeah, because the school he came from as a mean of...
We got ourselves in trouble. We got ourselves in trouble, and that is why, as we tell those communities, those people to stop, we shall be petitioning the Teacher Service Commission. We shall be petitioning the ministry so that we can look at it and say, hey you, this policy is not bad, it's within your mandate, but do it in a way that it will not also leave an egg on our faces.
Amos, what is the ultimate impact of this social vice that we seem to be accepting and embracing?
Yeah, I can speak from history, and what we've seen is that the kind of ugly things we are seeing have got a lot of negative implications on our schools. And I want to join the chair in saying that education should be led to be managed by the professionals. I think there is a tendency in this country for everyone to think that they are experts in matters of education. And so even when we talk about aspects of, Chairman, what he's trying to avoid the word, but it's the real word about consultation, when we refer to
people don't like it.
Yes, people don't like it.
I've gotten in trouble many a time.
Including
whenever
myself,
I say,
yes.
hey, you let the union be consulted, it looks like it's me who is then driving the seat. It's not like that.
But what we're saying is that there are aspects within, or there are professionals which are not necessarily in the line management of education, and that is the Ministry of Education and the Teacher Service Commission and its semi-autonomous government agencies that have got a lot of interest, and not just interest. It is based on evidence, it is based on practice, it is based on good intentions. And these include the unions, these include the associations which are for the head teachers, which includes the publishers, which include the civil societies, that when they speak, they do not necessarily mean that they have got anything negative. I don't think that any one of us sits and has got an intention to see to it that our children are not getting the best education. I think all of us want to see our children getting the best education. Even these parents who are going to demonstrate, who are going to evict the head teachers, in their own thinking, they imagine that what they are doing is in the best interest. But I want to go on record to say that I think the unions would have done a little bit better for us to realize where we've reached right now. Because some of these ugly things are based on what I may call their reckless utterances. When all this thing was happening, the unions are on record. One of the unions was on record to saying that we shall resist, and they have engaged in the highest level of provocation.
They actually said we will
even
go on strike.
Yes. And so what you go to weigh what is the implication of such utterances when they are made by national officials of a very, very credible institution and party to the education process.
Hold it right there. How do you plead? Because what he's saying is factual.
I think he is now also becoming pedestrian. You cannot just come on the national telly and say that the unions are the ones that gave this utterance.
No, what he said, Chairman,
this would be very, very wrong.
Chairman, what Amos said is that one of the national unions, through the national officials, actually said we are going to strike if these transfers are not annulled.
I wouldn't speak on behalf of any other national...
So he's not being pedestrian. What he's saying is factual.
No, it's not factual because...
No, it is.
It's not, because the unions were simply saying, let's take a look at this policy. Can we push it now? And you seem to agree with me. There were too many policies that were coming at the same time.
But did they say
and when those policies were coming at the same time, they were meant to affect the societies and the schools. So what we have now, we cannot say that the unions in any way are responsible for this. The responsibility of this is basically, one, I've condemned what is happening. And two, we have told those people who are doing this to stop doing it immediately and take those petitions to the right place.
Now, Chairman, sorry, Chairman, I want you to
for the unions to be sucked in.
Just a minute, Chairman.
That they are the ones that
Chairman,
may have led to this happening.
Just a minute. I want you to take it beyond the scope of Kupet. I want you to look at the national stakeholders, the teachers' unions. A faction of the teachers' unions, or one of the teachers' unions officials, is on record as having said, we will go on strike if TSC does not annul these transfers. Would you consider that a reckless statement, or would you consider that consultative?
Or advice?
We have not seen any strike being called. You know, I'm in the business of strikes myself. And whenever strike is called in this country, I know. And even if another union within the teachers' circles would call for a strike, I would know. So I think all you are saying may have been what you picked from maybe the press or such utterances. But I'm telling you,
so they were misquoted.
If a strike is called in this country for teachers, brother, take it and look in my face. As for now, Umboko Milemba, I would be aware.
Chairman, I did not say a strike was called.
Yeah.
What I am saying is, would you consider such a statement a reckless statement, tantamount to inciting parents?
Well, you know, people also previously, some of our leadership used the word strike all the time. And I don't believe in that. Strikes can only be used for real purposes of what they are meant for. So as far as I'm concerned, no strike has been called.
Nobody has called. But would the use of the word strike be inciting?
I wouldn't be standing in to advocate for any other person. Deal with me as Umboko Milemba, deal with Kupet, deal with the national
chairman. You have refused to answer my question. But
maybe if I just give it a write down, I find a contradiction in that rebuttal. And maybe, let me put it this way. Yesterday, the chairman and his officials called for a press conference where they called for the end to this kind of ugly things that are happening in our schools. So if they come to an end, Bwana Chairman, would you say that you made a contribution in terms of stopping this madness, or would you say that maybe people took initiative or whatever they thought about? What am I trying to say? That in certain positions where some of us sit, including the chairman and any other official, they are individuals and institutions with impeccable record. They sit in positions of influence. And therefore, it's only responsible that the kind of utterances that they make, they should be weighed on what are the likely implications. Because it's possible that you may not have meant that you want to have ugly scenes of head teachers being evicted. But someone else would have looked at it and say that if the unions, whom for so long we've seen advocate for the rights of the teachers, are seen to resist this kind of a thing, then we believe and trust that what they are saying is therefore correct.
Moderator,
and therefore, to that extent,
bring in some sobriety. When I came here, I believe that this is a matter that needs insight in terms of understanding.
And more importantly, I want us to look at the ultimate
understanding
impact.
it and getting out of it.
What do you think is the impact of all this?
I don't imagine that it should be an issue of so-and-so did this.
No, it's okay. We are past that. We are past that.
The union did this.
We are past that, Chairman.
No.
We are past that. What, in your opinion, as an educationist, is the impact of this? That is what the people who are doing this need to understand. What is the impact of this?
The impact of this is extremely wrong. And now you are giving me a better question. Thank you very much. Because if we allow...
Please answer it. Go ahead and answer it.
If we allow people who are not supposed to manage schools, take over schools, decide which principal to enter school and which principal to leave, for any small reason, whether reasonable or not reasonable. So I don't want to go into the bit of whether they are right or wrong. It will be very wrong, and it will escalate into anarchy into the education system. Because today they will say they are evicting one principal because of this mean score, as they are pretending, but the next day they will also evict another principal because of another reason. And soon we shall lose the education system to the dogs. And we shall lose it to the people who cannot manage it. So the impact of this is so grave, and that's why it must come to an end. So that it gives the leaders and the stakeholders in the education system, including my brother here, if you are one of them, to sit down and make sure that we bring order in the education system. So the way things are moving is wrong, and the impact would be very, very bad. Again, it would be very dangerous, because when you say you have ejected a principal of a particular school from a certain area, it may also escalate to a tribal or a community understanding. I'm very, very worried. And our teachers are working everywhere in this country. So you evict one in Machakos or Lamu, then a ripple effect will happen in another area. So that's why this must come to an immediate stop.
What about to the children?
As I said, all these things at the end of the day end up to the children. And what the chairman, I also just want to add what the chairman is saying. This is where leadership is required, and especially for those charged with the responsibility of managing the public sector. I think it is just responsible enough for the ministry, and by extension the commission, to appreciate that education is a very delicate aspect, and everybody has got interest in education, and these interests are positive. By the way, I'm not holding brief for the communities, but if you look at what communities have done in this country for education, it is tremendous. It is a lot. And Mheshimiwa will tell you that before CDF came, 96% of infrastructure in our schools was put up by local communities and parents.
As an obligation?
No, I mean, because the government has not even been developing infrastructure in our schools. And that's why when you walk into any secondary school, you will see a lot of buildings written PTA project 2002, PTA project whatever year. Don't forget that communities even contributed land, a lot of land where schools are built. And therefore, communities are critical stakeholders in education. So it's only important for us to look at sometimes what is it, and I like what the chairman called it, ownership. How do you ensure that all of us as stakeholders believe that there is ownership? Because you see, for someone who is new being posted to our school, we don't have their history. All that you need to help us to do is to appreciate that, give them a chance.
I want to help you. And now you are talking very well. You know, schools were originally begun by churches. And the churches were the owners of schools. Later on, the schools were surrendered to government by churches. But along the way, and I'm proud to have been there, during the tenure of the presidency, that was Moi, schools were basically, again, community. And that was because of what we call the cost sharing. And that's when communities came in to take over. And even if you look at the composition of the boards of management and so on, in fact, it was during that particular area that PTA was born. PTA was born out of the cost sharing period. So the communities are key stakeholders. I really wanted to support you on that.
I'm still waiting for Amos, and this was directed to you. What is the impact of this, very quickly, on children? When children see their parents going against the teacher, and you know the way a child perceives a teacher?
I have a quick answer for that, if you allow me.
I'll give you a chance.
I taught in a school that is struggling to come to terms with the reality after the eviction of a head teacher. It has a lot of implications. You kill the morale of the teachers. You basically make the school unmanageable. Because what the parents are basically communicating to their children, that you do not need that person to stand in front of you to tell you anything. So you breed a lot of anarchy when you let this one to happen, and in the long run, the learning levels and the learning outcomes are just
Chairman,
take this to the bank. Any school that has currently been hurt by just the few incidents we have seen will certainly not be performing well. Schools are extremely delicate and sensitive. Each time you interfere with the school system for one reason or another, it takes a little bit longer time to settle down and recover, produce results. And I can give you easy examples which we saw. But I don't want to mention them because we really...
And the one thing the two gentlemen...
So what we are seeing now is that any place where this is happening, like Kapenguria, I can mention that one because it's already on strike.
Friend school,
Kamusinga, you will find that the school will immediately start. And that is why then I call upon the commission that when doing this, they should be allowed. I think the commission did not do this on its own. I think there was some influence from outside. Yes, and it's me talking.
Of course.
So they may have been pushed to hurriedly do it, because I know the commission themselves, all of them are teachers, and they know how to delicately do that thing in such a way that it should not hurt the schools the way it wants to go. Sometimes they even do it very cautiously at certain
One thing the two gentlemen are not saying is that if a child sees their parent use violence because of something they don't like, tomorrow that child will be violent at home if he doesn't like something.
You have said it for us, and it's true.
You have talked about possible interference in the operations of the commission. And that takes us to another story on page 5 of the Daily Nation. Now, county bosses get role in school reforms review. Education CS Fred Matiang'i is expected to meet county commissioners today and hold talks on how to implement schools reforms review. Do you think county commissioners should be brought into...
You see, that is what I'm talking about. And who is bringing them in? The county commissioners. When you bring in county commissioners, we are going back to where we were, where the DCs were actually the heads of the district.
They're supposed to spearhead. They're supposed to spearhead public participation, Chairman.
But their contribution may not be very, very good for the sector. But what I like, and I was there when the president was giving that particular order, allow me to use order for now, he thought that consultation, the word that people don't like, during the curriculum had not been done exhaustively. So he said, hey you, let's take this consultation to the grassroots. And how do we get the grassroots consultation? I think that's how the county commissioner should come in, and the other leadership in the structure of the provincial administration.
To spearhead the consultation.
To spearhead. But in so doing, they should not be masters of what we shall get.
And just to add to that, I think it's important for us to look at this institution of the county commissioners or the defunct provincial administration and how it's viewed in the public. And there is a lot of suspicion towards this institution on whether it means well or whether it's a puppeteer of the system. And so it's all about how the institution will shrug off this tag that it's coming with, because that is the baggage that it brings on board. I have been to many parts of this country, and public barazas are hardly attended. In fact, you wonder why, not you wonder, but it's common knowledge that politicians attract the highest crowds in this country. Public barazas attract the least. And I think I've seen a few. I visited a chief in Amagoro who would manage to attract a public baraza, even 1,000 people to attend. But this is not generally the phenomenon that you see around. So it's good that government thinks about the common mwananchi down there getting involved in terms of giving at least feedback. But how this is managed altogether is very, very important. As the chairman putting it, they should not go there as the experts. Rather, they should allow this just to be a platform or a mechanism through which people could consult, so that if the chief is in charge of organizing for a baraza, you're therefore bringing if it's the sub-county director of education or a teacher in that particular context to explain to the public what all these curriculum reforms is all about, but not delegating this responsibility to the local chief now to be the one articulating on the benefits and the importance of this kind of education reform.
Because we shall basically lose the gains we had attained courtesy of having removed the provincial administration from the schooling system.
Chairman, are we taking, as a country, are we taking the education sector too fast?
Not too fast. These are just changes, but changes are likely to receive certain reactions. But again, we have to move cautiously so that the residue effect of the changes do not overwhelm the good changes that are coming. Because look at the change in the examination system. Very well, very well. We are very happy about what's happening. But as we do so, let's also allow the others that are coming to come progressively. So maybe you could be correct that we could be moving the wheel a little bit faster.
What do you think can hold on? In the reforms that we currently have in the sector, what can we hold on a bit?
I will profile them. One, we have done the Kenya National Examination Council is doing very well. The curriculum is moving on well. We moved it too fast, and that's why you notice that by the time we even met, we were actually not ready. Finally, everybody could see that we were not ready, because we ended up agreeing that we go and continue piloting for 1 more year. Yet earlier on, even assertions from certain stakeholders were also treated very badly when they said, hey, you consult. That's why the word consulting is not very good. Is not very good. But then moving forward, as we do that, then we should have also made sure that the schools are stable. So when you bring in quick changes in the schools, I hope there's no quick also change in the deputies and maybe the heads of departments and maybe the teachers, because again, how we brand the policies we bring to bear is very important. You know, you come to a school and the brand you are giving the principal, a professional who has come to take over and dispense with the tasks of what a profession should do. You are branding him, he's coming here because of delocalization. Already the branding was wrong.
Not because he or she is qualified.
He's qualified. You have branded this man on his chest, delocalization.
A delocalized item.
So already the branding was wrong. These are some of the things we do talk about. We can sit down and see how to do it, brand it well, create ownership.
So, Amos, you say something?
I want to believe that, just to be a little bit pessimistic, that we're moving too fast. The challenge will be sustainability. There's a serious concern around sustainability. For the Commission...
Are you not just fearing change?
No, it's not about fearing change. And I'm going to elucidate it. If you look at the curriculum reform process, who chairs the steering committee? Is a cabinet secretary who has now been moved to a different ministry. So what will happen post him? So you're talking about someone else coming in to settle down, to realize whatever thought process was all about. Now you're looking at the bureaucracy within the Ministry of Education. Has it reformed? I am not 100% sure that if you look at the structures at the county level, sub-county level, down there, maybe they have particularly changed so much. Lastly, I think that for education to really work, I think, need to find a way in which we facilitate schools once again to make more decisions. Look at decisions around textbooks. This is something that is very difficult to sustain. Because if there are problems within procurement of textbooks within the schools, then you should be supporting schools to reach levels where they can do these processes with a lot of fairness.
Rather than doing it for them.
Rather than doing it centrally, because what you are basically, you are centralizing corruption. What about if this system fails even just in 1 year? So I am strongly convinced that what the ministry should be doing is to strengthen institutions. And I want to go on record by saying that it's still unfortunate that the ministry has not equipped what even the Basic Education Act itself calls the Education Standards and Quality Assurance Council, and has continuously kept the director under the ministry. I think it should be a good opportunity to let these institutions grow, give more autonomy and more powers, more money, facilitate the county education boards together with the boards of management in the schools to make decisions, because that is the only way in which you will stabilize these things in the long run.
Yeah, because one very funny thing now is that parents in a school decide that we want to do Project X for our children. The law, the Basic Education Act, allows parents to look for ways of raising funds to help with the upkeep of their children. But then they have to consult the CS.
Maybe that was part of what my colleague here was saying, that schools are partially also owned by the community. But I also wanted to say that the Teachers Service Commission, you know, it has mandate to deploy teachers anytime. How I wish they could do it without necessarily borrowing from, in quotes, outside. I don't think this term delocalization was necessary. And I don't think it was educational. I don't think it was professional. Because when you bring in terms like delocalization, you start attracting some players and stigmatize these people for no proper reason. And you also start attracting some players who then say, all right, we are delocalizing. So if we are delocalizing this, why are we not delocalizing that? And why are we delocalizing this? So you create, it should have just been done in a professional way, where we are saying, hey, these principals, these teachers have been in the same school for 3 years, and it's our policy after 3 years, you have served well, we thank you, you are now moving to another school, and we are changing, bringing another principal.
Gentlemen, we have just about 5 minutes.
In so doing,
and I want us to summarize, I want us to give our closing remarks with the 3 issues in mind. We have the issue of time, we have the issue of change, and we have the issue of involvement for the education sector. Time is not waiting for us. We can't do things the way we were doing them a long time ago and expect different results. Change is normally not acceptable very easily to most people. And most important, the issue of involvement, which Chairman is avoiding to use the word consultation.
But it is. We just have to call it.
We have to consult. So as you close, could it be that maybe the society is not accepting change, or the stakeholders are not fully involved, or we are moving too fast? As you close.
There could be both, or there could be a better way to define them. But this is just my last statement. Evidence has told us that any performing school is a function of a whole school approach. And therefore, change should be what is happening at the school. Any change that is externally driven is not sustainable. So all that you have to do is to facilitate schools to create cultures of a particular kind of system or particular kind of image that they want to see. If a school culturizes what is good performance in terms of what it defines, what is the character, what are the kind of children they want to achieve, this is sustainable for the next 40 years. This is going to be sustainable for the next 50 years. And so the role, those of us who are outside that particular one school, my Chekalini Primary School, what we should be doing is to look at how do we facilitate the Chekalini Primary School community to work in the best interest, to determine the goals of Chekalini Primary, and to realize this. I think where we are going, and it's very, very dangerous, is where we are beginning to personalize these issues so that change is seen as to be being driven by individuals as opposed to supporting schools to become self-sustaining and be owned by the local communities to believe that we can make the necessary changes. We can put in sufficient resources for us to achieve what we want.
Thank you, Amos.
On the issue of consultation, which people don't like so much,
and that's why I say let's use
involvement. The society is so improved. We are no longer living with the society of 1963, 1954. The people are more cautious because of advocacy, and you cannot do away with consultation or involvement of building ownership of public participation. So all of us in leadership positions, we must embrace consultation. And number two, on time. Time will not be waiting for us. And therefore, we just must keep moving.
We must do it now.
And change is inevitable. Change is inevitable, and we must embrace it with the residue effect that it comes with. For instance, I am not looking forward to continuously be told that a mobile phone is dangerous for examination leakage, because we must change to a level whereby I will see a school inviting students to go to school and a mobile phone is not a risk to examination leakage. Because if we look at the Bloom's taxonomy, we can set questions where even if you have the phone, you will not answer them, and therefore change must be embraced. But finally, moving forward, I came here to assert that what is happening is wrong. We want to tell our county leaderships, our MCAs, our communities, countrywide, that don't harass teachers in the schools. If you have petitions, if you have complaints, direct those complaints through the correct channels. And there are many. We have the institution of the Parliament. Parliament is the core institution that overlooks how the society is protected. We have the Education Office. We have the TAC offices within the counties. But don't go and attack schools the way it's happening now, because that will completely kill our schools. Let the teachers be protected as the authorities look into what is happening moving forward.
Chairman, National Chairman Kupet Mheshimiwa Mboko Milemba, also Member of Parliament for Emuhaya, thank you very much. Amos Kaburu from Twaweza, thank you very much for your insights as we focus mainly on the issue of education in the country. Now look, they say what is good for the goose is good for the gander. Before you take any action against somebody else because you are of an opposing view, just ask yourself, if such an action would be taken against you, how would you feel? Time waits for nobody. Change is inevitable. We are all stakeholders. It is important that we get involved. Thank you very much. That is just about all we had for the news review segment of the Power Breakfast Show. Power Breakfast Show continues with Joy Matiang'i, and like she said, today is Friday. We talk music and entertainment.